By Avi Selt, The Washington Post. The Palm Beach Gardens Police Department's first homicide investigation of 2018 opened in late January, rather early in the year, considering that Palm Beach Gardens, Florida, is basically a live-in golf course of 50,000 people, where the annual murder count rarely cracks 1. The case, preceded by the books, At First, Ad Choice Advertising and Red, invented by Teeth. Start your day with the news you need from the Bay Area and beyond. Sign up for our new Morning Report weekday newsletter. Victim, Alan J. Abramson. A well-liked man, by the accounts of friends and family. Ostensibly happy, according to the same. Alan was an avid golfer, enjoyed traveling and had a zest for life, per his obituary in the Palm Beach Post. He woke up each morning with a smile on his face and was adored by all. Abramson lived in a $900,000 house, inside the gates of an opulent country club, within walking distance to the ocean and whatever amenities a 71-year-old man might avail himself of. He owned the house with his wife, Linda, soulmates, as a family friend put it to police. He had children and stepchildren and step-grandchildren. He had no major medical issues that police knew of. No known enemies, either. He must have been walking to meet a friend at Starbucks when it happened, his wife told police, per the investigative report. Abramson's pre-dawn whacks were a new routine. He told friends he wanted to lose a few pounds he'd gained on a cruise. But they hardly seemed out of character for such an active, sociable man. A surveillance camera at the community's North Gatehouse captured Abramson's last living images on Jan. 25. It was a windy morning, still climbing toward the 70s. He wore a sweatshirt, ball cap and shorts, passing the gate and walking out of the camera frame at 5:53 a.m. He seemed to be carrying something in his left hand, police noticed. What? Too dark to make out. Exactly 37 minutes later, the surveillance camera recorded the sound of a gunshot, then silence. A dog found Abramson just before 7 a.m., police wrote. It jumped off a golf cart and ran over to the body, which was lying in a palmetto-lined field near a walking path, maybe 300 feet past the gate. Abramson was lying on his back, feet pointed east toward the Atlantic, arms at his side, blood pooled around the hole in his sweatshirt. 3 detectives were on the scene by sunrise and found few clues near the body. No weapon, no shell casing, no signs of struggle, no dirt on the soles of his sneakers. Abramson still had his phone and his wallet, though a binder clip he commonly used to carry several $100s in cash was empty. A watch that his wife said he usually wore also was missing. The index finger of his left hand was extended, detectives noted before the body was carried away for an autopsy. This kind of crime is unheard of in this area, a CBS 12 News anchor said. George Blackstone, who owned a lighting company where Abramson worked, told the Palm Beach Post that his friend had been in typically good spirits when they spoke a few days earlier, optimistic about a business opportunity, he said. It's horrifying, just the thought of it, Blackstone told one of the TV reporters. Why Alan? Why Alan? Why Alan? Shortly after lunchtime that day, the autopsy found a hollow point bullet lodged in Abramson's torso. It had mushroomed into the shape of a 6-point star after ripping through his heart and lungs. By sundown, TV stations were reporting that the search for the killer was on. On February 2nd, a day after the body was found, police offered a $3,000 reward for information leading to a suspect's arrest. Abramson's friends later chipped in to increase that amount, but not a single tip came in, according to police. By then, detectives had met with Abramson's wife and biological children, including an estranged son. They had stopped and questioned early morning commuters near the country club, canvassed homeless shelters and cross-referenced robbery reports. They had repeatedly scoured the field, searched storm drains and rooted through dumpsters. And for all that, they had turned up not so much as the shell casing, let alone the gun, let alone a suspect. but it would be wrong to say that police were totally stumped. Although the fieldwork had turned up little, police wrote in the case report, Linda Abramson had helped police unlock her husband's phone. The contents were, at least, interesting. A preliminary search of Abramson's emails turned up a curious email regarding an order he had placed on Christmas Day 2017 from an online science supply company. Weather balloon, $55, 600 grams, X1. In Abramson's Google Maps history, investigators discovered that between his typical morning walks to Starbucks and various errands, he had visited an industrial supply store in West Palm Beach 2 days before his death. Detectives drove to the store and came back with a copy of Abramson's receipt for a 40-cubic-foot helium tank. Perplexed, police re-interviewed friends and relatives to find out whether Abramson's hobbies might have included atmospheric science. But as they wrote in the report, nobody could advise any reason why he would have a weather balloon or helium tank. So investigators' suspicions began to turn in a new direction. A detective remembered that more than half an hour had elapsed between the time Abramson had walked past the gatehouse, beyond camera view, and the time of the gunshot. I later walked the same route, exiting around the guard gate and then back onto the sidewalk to the location where Abramson was located, the detective wrote. It took me approximately 4 minutes 3 seconds at a normal walking pace. The peculiarities kept mounting, eventually coalescing into something approaching a theory. The evening before police publicized their $3,000 reward for information leading to an arrest, a detective who had been poring over Abramson's phone and computers privately advanced a wild idea to his colleagues. Det. Brian Brame theorized that it possibly was not a homicide, but possibly a suicide, an investigator wrote in the report. That he tied a gun to a string, and attached it to the weather balloon, and once the shot was fired the weather balloon ascended carrying the weapon from the scene. Police researchers could find only 2 cases of such a thing being attempted, both somewhat ridiculous. A man had tried to fake his murder in the New Mexico desert in 2008, but his bundle of helium balloons had merely carried the gun into a cactus not far from his body. The only other example detectives could find of someone managing to balloon a weapon out of a crime scene was from 2003 on an episode of the fictional TV show, CSI, Las Vegas. Still, a Palm Beach Gardens investigator wrote in his report, although the theory seemed far-fetched, it was plausible. Police returned to the field again on Feb. 5. Near the wall of the country clubs, more than 100 feet from where the body had lain, they found a few rubber bands and a piece of knotted string. Abramson had more of the same in his home office, police wrote. The next day, a forensics investigator noticed something peculiar in the blood stain on Abramson's sweatshirt. A very thin, straight trail of blood led from the center of the stain outward toward a shoulder, police wrote, possibly indicating that something was in the blood and dragged across to the top of the shirt. 2 weeks after Abramson's death, as the by-the-books homicide investigation continued, a detective called a nearby airport and a TV traffic reporter to ask whether anyone had seen a weather balloon drifting over Palm Beach Gardens on Jan. 25. No one had. But police were able to access Abramson's phone and web searches dating back nearly a decade. As excerpted in the final police report, the search queries told a story that made sense to detectives. July 7, 2009, suicide, how to commit suicide. April 10, 2012, life insurance suicide. March 17, 2016, undetectable suicide methods. Feb. 21, 2017, Gizmodo.com, explains what happens when you get shot in the head. And, if shot in the heart, do you die instantly? And, can you have a gunshot suicide with no weapon present? Feb. 23, 2017, YouTube, Seg, suppressors, Jefferson silencer on Walther PPK suppressed .380. August 28, 2017, voice search, how many cubic feet of helium do you need to raise 1 pound? Jan. 23, 2018, helium suppliers near me. Jan. 24, 2018, final search before death dawn, dusk times. A full 3 weeks into the investigation, the balloon theory no longer sounded far-fetched to police. A detective finally contacted the owner of the online company from which Abramson had purchased his weather balloon. "I asked the owner how far a 600-gram balloon can travel," the detective wrote. "He advised me he launched a balloon on Monday in Huntsville, Alabama, and 8 hours later it burst in the Atlantic Ocean off the coast of New Jersey." Police fed the weather conditions for Palm Beach Gardens on Jan. 25 into a simulator. The result, they wrote, was that if Abramson had inflated his weather balloon and tied it to a gun before dawn that morning, then walked out into the palmettos beyond his gates and shot himself point blank in the heart, gusts of wind would have carried the evidence somewhere north of the Bahamas before it fell into the Atlantic Ocean. In early March, detective again contacted Abramson's wife, his children and stepchildren, and some of his friends and told them that their first homicide investigation of 2018 had been closed, cancelled and ruled a suicide. Police released their final report to the public this week. A spokesman declined to comment on what motive Abramson might have had for faking his murder, and his family could not be reached. Meanwhile, the workers who dredged the many water hazards of Palm Beach Gardens for sunken golf balls have been advised to keep an eye out for a helium tank. AD Quality Auto 360p 720p 1080p. You might also like 1 o'clock how Toshiba uses technology to shape a better world. Toshiba APAC. Enjoy fine dining at Singapore Marriott with HSBC Visa. HSBC Bank 2,500-year-old system that would reduce body pain. Ace Pro Academy. Suffering from the heat? Try AirCool. NewThingsToday.com. The unusual link between coconut oil and Alzheimer's memory repair protocol.com. Try new Similac with 2FL plus nucleotides 2. Abbott family. Paris Jackson admits something that her reported. MercuryNews.com. Milbank, eye-popping views of some 2018 GOP. MercuryNews.com. Northern California women's multiple arrests exemplify. MercuryNews.com. Recommended by